customers that don't and have eliminated. Those headaches include things like a lot of information being trapped in desk drawers and file cabinets on paper and in people's individual computers and so on and so forth, where it might be better if it was accessible and shared. That same information when on paper or individual files or personal computers is something that's at risk. It's easy to damage it or lose it or destroy it, and hence that information is gone and gone forever. It also involves a lot of busy work. I mean, you see people standing in front of copy machines or fax machines or printing things out only to stuff them in envelopes and running across the building to find the right bit of information or piece of paper that they need. And there's a lot of time and effort spent searching for the right information in the documents you need. This is the gift that keeps on giving. Even though you may have gotten everything delivered and filed quickly and accurately, when you need documents, locating them oftentimes may not take long for an individual document, but you add up all the time spent that individuals spend searching for the information they need, it becomes a very expensive affair. So when you add all of these things up, there's a lot of wasted space, physical space in the building, as well as time and money. DDX, our document management software, equals freedom from all of those headaches and hassles. We do this in a couple of different ways. We do this first with our advanced print management functions, where we deliver some of the documents that are produced out of Syspro or other systems. What that means is that instead of physically printing a document, you may print your invoice or your batch of 100 invoices, and each of those, rather than going to paper, can be faxed and or emailed and or printed to any number of fax destinations or any number of email addresses or any number of printers, all just through the simple act of saying, I want to print this thing. And all the rest of that stuff just happens automatically in the background for you based on delivery preferences you have set up for each individual customer for invoices, which may be different than order acknowledgments. At the same time, we capture a copy of those things going out the door. We index them and file them away so you don't have to. They then reside in the document management system itself, so we're saving those documents so that you can share them, search for them, organize them as you see fit. But this goes beyond just dealing with those documents that are produced out of Syspro. It works certainly for those, but also works for many kinds of documents that come from all sorts of other places. Your customer sends you purchase orders. Your supplier sends you their invoices. There's correspondence. There's specifications and certification documents and work instructions and all sorts of things that can come from all sorts of disparate places. DDX provides a gathering place for all of those things and a framework that allows you to make order out of all of that chaos. We do this by implementing a multi-dimensional filing system. You know, if you think of the way a physical filing system works, your filing cabinets, for example, it's not really all that dissimilar from the way you store things in Outlook or store things in a file folder on a server in your network somewhere. It's a one-dimensional approach to things. In the case of the physical filing cabinet, you know, all of the order-related stuff is stored in a particular room by customer name, and then within customer name, maybe by order number. So I need to go to the right room in the right filing cabinet, in the right drawer, the right folder in that drawer, and the right place in that folder to locate the one document that I happen to be looking for. And that's easy to do, I guess, if somebody told you that I was looking for this order number. But if they asked for it by customer purchase order number, and you don't have it filed that way, it's going to take some hunting to find what you're looking for, if you can find it at all. In our world, that one document is stored in multiple ways. So if I get a request to find that invoice by invoice number, that's easy enough. Just look it up that way. I can also look it up by customer name or customer number or customer PO number or our order number and so on and so forth. So it is as if it is filed. We've filed multiple copies in multiple different orders to satisfy the needs of a variety of audiences. although there really is only one copy stored. So we just give you multiple ways of getting at it, or multiple dimensions. That gives us one common framework and one central location that makes these things easy to share. You can also use DDX to facilitate workflow for things like simple review and approval processes. If I need to pass a document off to a manager to have it reviewed before it's entered into the system, I can present that manager with a list of the documents that require his approval and give him a mechanism for dealing with that. And there are other flavors that workflow can take as well. All of this comes in a secure and recoverable package. So security features allow you to determine who gets to see what kinds of documents and when, so I can control access to these things. And because we've moved everything pretty easily into an electronic realm, if the worst should happen in a typical paper-based filing system, you may lose those documents and the information on them forever. In DDX, you are maybe a couple hours away from restoring that information and being back up and running and not having lost the thing. So all of those documents and all of the information contained on them is fairly easily recoverable, so you've really lowered your risk. So if we look at those headaches that we talked about first, DDX's goal, and it truly does, eliminate all of those types of things and make life better as a result, so that you're free from all those headaches with DDX. Now our customers almost always say it better than we do. We try to provide a system that's simple to use, low to no maintenance, yet provides really a lot of basic, simple functionality that people need on a day-to-day basis, but enough robustness on the back end that allows it to be tailored to suit individual customers and individual sites and unique needs that they may have. And we bring that product forward over time so that it, as the world changes, we change with it, and maybe even ahead of it, so that you have the things you need over the long haul. And many of our customers will find have been using the product for many years and remain very, very happy with it. If we look at those customers and kind of give you an idea of where they might be using DDX, it can venture into all sorts of different features or functions and nooks and crannies in a given company. And it's really up to you to decide which areas of the company are going to most benefit from the use of such a tool. It is capable of all sorts of different things, but not necessarily every company finds it. They may find it more valuable in customer service and in accounting, or purchasing. So you have some choices that you can make about how to use it, but that single tool can cover a ton of territory. So something to keep in mind as you go forward. Maybe the best way for us to explain how the product works is to show you, and show you in the context of a day in the life. Now we deal exclusively with manufacturing and distribution companies, small and mid-sized. And when we, in that world, we see over and over and over again things like, how do I deal with a customer order? So this makes a pretty good example that will walk us through the various bits and pieces of the product to give you an idea of what's there. In this real simple scenario, I'm going to pretend that I'm the manufacturer, and I receive a purchase order from my customer that I need to fulfill. Now I'm going to go then into the Syspro system and enter that customer order, and for our purposes today, I won't actually go through the order entry. That doesn't really change with the advent of DDX, but we'll imagine that the order's been entered. Then we're going to file that customer PO away, and instead of filing it in a physical filing cabinet, we're going to file it in DDX. The next step would be to deliver and file my order acknowledgement. I've got to send something back to my customer and file a copy away for my own reference, and probably file it away so that I can marry it up with the customer PO. We'll do that again in DDX, but it's a little bit different process than the customer PO. I only need to set delivery preferences for that customer for order acknowledgments once. They want them emailed here or faxed there, and that type of thing. And from that point forward in time, All the user needs to do on a day-to-day basis is when they have a new order acknowledgement, they print it, or they print their batch of order acknowledgements. So it becomes very easy to deliver and file. And then sometime, days or weeks or months later, I need to be able to find the documents that are related to that particular order. So we'll use this as a framework to walk through the product and show you the various things that go on, so you get a flavor for what bits and pieces all add up to saving you all that time and money and space. So let's start with my customer's purchase order. Now, in my case, if I had received it on paper, I could scan it in for purposes like this, like a demonstration over the web. It's a little bit easier to show this if my customer had emailed me their purchase order. So they have done just that, and I'm going to grab the purchase order out of the email they sent me, and I'm going to drop it onto my desktop, and then I'm going to just drag it onto our DDX publisher. The DDX publisher's mission in life is A, to show me that PDF that I just dragged on there, and then in a moment to let me assign some keywords over here on the right that are going to allow me to file it away and be able to find it later. But while this thing is up and visible on my screen, imagine I can go to a screen to my right and I can enter that order into Syspro while I'm looking at it right here instead of having to print it out and enter it off of that piece of paper. When I'm done with the order entry in Syspro, I then come back to the publisher and I fill in these keywords. Now, the first thing I would do typically is I would select the type of document that we're talking about. And we ship with about 25 or 30 different document types predefined, but we also ship with the tools for you to create your own document types or tweak the ones that are there. So we've tried to define a bunch of those that are common, but they don't always fit every customer, so you can tailor your environment to the way you need it. When I choose a document type, like, for example, an expense report here, it changes the keywords to be something that are appropriate for an expense report. Likewise, when I choose my customer PO, which is our goal today, it sets the keywords to be something that are more appropriate for a customer PO. Now, I can enter my keywords here. I could select from drop-down lists of options that you can define if you choose, or I'm going to clear that out real quick. I can choose to use our validation and auto lookup module. With that module, you'll note that we've got one keyword field here, our order number, lit up in a little bit different color in bold, indicating that that's the one keyword I need to enter here. So I'm going to do that. Oops, 841. I've got my order number because I entered it in Syspro already. When I click this little button here, what's going to happen is it's going to reach out using that order number I just entered into the Syspro database, validate that this is in fact a real order number, and it's going to auto-populate the remaining keywords here from the order that resides in Syspro. So when I click right now, it's performed that lookup, it's validated that this is real, and it's populated all of these other keywords for me. I can do a quick double check looking at, here's the customer's purchase order number, here's the customer PO number I got out of Syspro, everything looked great. I'm just going to file that away now. Now, if that had been click one more button and now it's filed away inside of DDX. If that had been an invalid order number, it would have stopped and told me that. Or if it had been a wrong order number, it would have pulled in the wrong keywords, and I would have been able to see that very easily right then and there as well. So putting it away and making sure that all that information is valid was really pretty simple. My next step then is to print my order acknowledgments. Without DDX, typically you would print these things off. They'd wind up on paper. You'd stuff them in envelopes, put postage on them, stick them in the mail, and they'd get to your customer at some point along the way. But with DDX, we can do this a little bit differently. I've set my delivery preferences up for my customers ahead of time, so on a day-to-day basis, all I really need to do is print. So I'm going to do that. For my purposes today, I'm just going to choose a single sales order, but this could just as easily be, all sales orders or a range or a batch of 100 or 500. DDX will just pick them all up and deal with them all automatically. So all you need to do is say, I want to print, And instead of choosing a physical printer to send these things to, you're going to send them to the DDX printer. When I say print, I've got my system set up here to give me a little preview in Syspro. And to make the magic happen, I just need to hit this little print button here. And now instead of going to a physical printer, DDX is converting these into PDFs, sending them off to your server, looking up what are the preferences for this particular customer. I'm emailing them, I'm faxing them, I'm printing them, and all that's happening behind the scenes. So as a user, I'm all done. I can move on and do whatever I need to do next. So delivering that copy of that thing to my customer and filing a copy of it was just that easy. Print. I'm all done. Now, sometime, months or weeks or years later, I may need to be able to find documents related to that particular order. Now, I can do some of this by looking at Syspro's sales order query. If I look up that sales order, I can see information about the line items and pricing and ship-to information and other stuff. And that's all fine and good and of value. But there may be other documents that are associated with this particular order that I want to be able to see. We saw just a moment ago one of the integration points between Syspro and DDX where we capture and then capture Syspro's output and facilitate the delivery of that to my customers. Well, another touch point for integration with Syspro is we have an ability to piggyback on Syspro's hyperlink capability to initiate a search in context with the screen that I'm looking at. So I'm looking at a sales order query for this particular sales order, and we've set a hyperlink up here to perform a search into DDX to show me all the documents related to this order. When I do that, it launches DDX and it launches our document viewer and shows me a list of all the documents related to that order, 841. Now, some of those documents, like the one we're looking at, came from Syspro. Other documents, like this, my customer correspondence, came from somewhere else. This is a preview of a Word document, for example. Picking ticket, maybe, that I printed out. And it back in. So here I've got a copy of that picking ticket. Here I've got an invoice that came from Syspro, scanned copy of a bill of lading with all the signatures I may need, and here's my customer PO. Further, you'll note on the customer correspondence, I've really, if I look at the document type here, I've got two customer correspondence items here, and I can see from this current rev column that the one I'm looking at right now is the current revision of the correspondence. I have an older revision of it as well, so I've got two versions of this correspondence floating around out there. Now, using that hyperlink out of Syspro to perform the search is one way to search for things. We offer a number of different ways to do that. I don't need to be in Syspro even to search for documents. I can do it directly from our document viewer. For example, if I type, let's just type the word dash up here in my search field and tell it to go out and search, I find a whole bunch of documents that in what I've searched for here is kind of like a quick Google or iTunes search, such that I've looked for any document where the word dash appears in any one of the keywords, the half dozen or 8 or 9 keywords that are associated with these documents, so contain the word dash, or the word dash appears somewhere in the body of the searchable PDFs that are housed here. So if I look, for example, for the word hat, I've only got one document out here that has it, and looking at the keywords across the top left here, I don't see the word hat in any of those keywords, but I do see the word hat down here in the body of the document. So I'm searching the content of that document as well. So for a quick, broad search, this search tool that you see up here on the toolbar is a pretty easy way to locate the things that I need. If I'm looking for something that's a little bit more refined and focused, we have a feature called Find. And in that context, we really narrow the search down by selecting the field, the keyword field that we want to look in. So customer vendor name, I can say how I want that to be matched, meaning the information I'm about to type in to search for should be equal to, greater than, less than, or I'm just going to say contains the word general. And I can add additional criteria here as well, saying, and, you know, the order number needs to equal this, that, or the next thing. I'm just going to say done. I don't need that additional criteria. So I can really narrow my scope of my search down significantly. And when I click the button there, I also get a list of documents that match my criteria. And we can see I've got items on this list for general manufacturing as well as general electric. So, and these things can come from all sorts of different places. So I've got two mechanisms of search here, quick, broad way of locating things, and a more refined mechanism with the Find button. In fact, this Find feature that we see here is the one that's being automated out of Syspro. The command line that is used on that hyperlink specifies which keyword to look in. In our case, it was order number. It was telling us we want to equal and 841, and this is the same result we got here just by clicking that hyperlink button before. There is a third mechanism for locating documents, and it's the folder view. In the folder view, I simply click down and drill down through a series of folders to get to the document I want. In this particular view, my order clip view that you see selected up here at the top, we've organized this so that the hierarchy is by company code or division, by customer name, by order number, and then document type, and so on and so forth. Now this makes it look a lot like these documents are stored in folders the way you might store them in Outlook or in Windows Explorer, you know, on disk somewhere. That's really not the case. All of these documents are stored internally inside our SQL Server database. So you won't find them as individual files scattered around on disk somewhere, but you will be able to access them anytime you need through the viewer. But because of that, these things really aren't in folders, but we've chosen this folder method for display because it's something that people are really familiar with. If you've used Outlook or you've used Windows Explorer, you've gotten at things by opening up folders in this manner. In our case, we build this display on the fly. We build it based on the keywords that are associated with any individual document. So for example, the collection you see here, all of these documents, the acknowledgement, the bill of lading, the customer PO, and so on, all share some attributes in common. They have the same division, customer name, and order number. And then from there, they start to diverge into different types of documents and then specific documents within that. So the minute a new order shows up in the system, you have a new folder, or maybe a new set of folders that would show up here for a different customer. So all of those folders become something that's automatically built for you based on the existence of a document. The other advantage to building these things on the fly is that we can change with the same collection of documents, we can change the order in which they're displayed. I have a different view here called my year, month, name view that displays that same collection by company code, by year, by month, by individual date, and so on and so on and so forth. So there's only one copy of this document in the system, but this particular view has said, I want the hierarchy of folders to be built in a different way that's more convenient for maybe some other purpose. Maybe an auditor wants to be able to see these things by year or month or name or something else. The other thing then that we can do with a view is not just rearrange the folders that you see here, but a view can also control what kinds of documents are visible and seen. For example, if I switch to my manufacturing view, now we're looking at exactly the same database that contains all the documents you just saw, but this particular view is it's structured in a way that says, show me only drawings and work instructions. So I've limited what people can see. And further, any searches that I perform here, like the one we did before for the word hat, they're limited to searching only those documents that are accessible by this view. So because the view limits or can limit what types of documents I see, it becomes a crux for security. I either grant or deny individuals access to particular views, and that in turn determines what they're able to see and view. In my case, I'm a system administrator, so I've got access to a whole bunch of different views. But we ship the system with about a half a dozen predefined views that should be of some value right out of the box, and with the tools for you to create your own views as you see fit. So you can determine that folder hierarchy, you can determine what kinds of documents ought to be displayed in a given view, and even other conditions or criteria that might determine what's displayed as well. Now, once I've located a document, regardless of how I located it, it could be through this folder view, it could be through the search functions, doesn't really matter. There's some other things that you can do from here. One, I can extract a copy of this thing very quickly just by clicking the Open Document button. And what happens is it pulls a copy out of the archive and launches whatever Windows thinks is the appropriate application to view this thing in. In my case, because I was looking at a PDF, it launched, as you can see, Acrobat. If it had been a Word document, it would have launched Word and so on and so forth. Just like double-clicking on a file from your desktop or from your Windows Explorer. I can also take this document and I can send another copy to somebody else via email very quickly, or print a copy. But if I'm going to send it by email, I just click the Send Mail button and it pops up Outlook as though I'm going to send a mail to somebody with that document attached as an attachment to the email. I can send it now to whomever I wish. One important note, the documents that you look at inside of DDX, these documents are read-only. Our job is to preserve a document as it was in the moment that it was captured. So nobody is able to go in and monkey around with this invoice and change the content of that document at all. But if for some reason I do need to change the content of that document, I can use the Open Document button to extract a copy. I can edit that, and I can put it back into the system through the publisher again. But now it will be put in as a new revision. There is no, unlike saving a file to disk somewhere where I can save a file and write over the previous version of something, in DDX world, a new version is always created so that you've got both new and older revisions of this document along the way. Also, when I've located a document, we realize that despite the fact that you can't change the content of the document, there might be other things after initial capture that you want to make note of and keep with that document. So we have a notes feature as well. If I look at the way notes are dealt with, I can add a note here. Hi there. Whatever information I want to add here, I can format it with some basic formatting tools, bold, fonts, sizes, things like that. And I can save that note, and now it becomes part of the list of notes that are associated with this particular document. There it is. But we can see that in the past here, we've had some activity on this thing. The customer said the check was in the mail. It's still in the mail. We received it. It was refused. So there's kind of a collection process maybe going on here. And each of these notes is date and time and user stamped with the user's Windows login ID. So we know who did what and when. And you can also, from a security standpoint, kind of control whether or not people get to see these, whether they get to add them, whether they get to edit them. And in my case, I'm going to delete this one because I want to just kind of keep my database fairly clean. But not everybody may have the opportunity to do that. Again, just based on security settings. So what we've seen here in terms of the viewer is probably the most visible portion of DDX. What most users touch and see and feel on a given day-to-day basis, and it's pretty simple. And it's intended to be that way. Training a new user to start using this and be productive on it is oftentimes a 10 or 15-minute affair. Here's the tool, here's how you search for these things, here's how you add notes, here's the folder view, and when it comes down to security, because I'm a system admin, I've got access to a whole bunch of different views. It's been our experience that most users wind up with 1 or 2 or 3 different views that are of value to them, and that may be all they see. So it's kept very simple for that user so that they can focus on what they do best and be productive in their jobs. So that's the document viewer for what we do. So back to our presentation here. We've kind of covered all of these things. We received the PO. We pretended that the order was entered in Syspro. We filed the PO away, with a single click. And we delivered and filed the order acknowledgement. So there was a different, more automated method here of filing that order away. And we were able to search for and find the order-related documents on the back end when we need them. Let's look at, I'm going to take a different scenario here for a moment and talk about expense reports to illustrate the workflow features in DDX. Let me first define workflow in DDX's terminology. What we mean when we talk about workflow is we mean I want to be able to present to someone a list or a queue of documents that are in a particular state. Now, how state is defined can be done in a variety of different ways. It could be, a status code on a order somewhere. It could be the existence of a companion document. For example, I've got a quote that's now I receive into DDX an order acknowledgement that references that quote. The status of both the quote and the order acknowledgement changed to something new, whereas the quote may have been previously status of or state of unfulfilled. In our case, we're going to use that notes feature as a way of signing off on a document and tracking who did what and when. So in the day of life of expenses, somebody has created an expense report. And today, I don't really care how they did it. All I know is that they did and that they archived that expense report, probably using the publisher that we saw earlier. Or there's ways to automate that as well. We're going to pick up this particular day in the life on the review and approval process. So I'm going to put my manager's hat on, and I'm going to look at the list of invoices and expense reports that I need to review and approve. I need to mark them as approved, and that's a workflow step, and then move them on to accounts payable so that they can enter them, and then accounts payable is going to mark them complete. And sometime later, I need to be able to find them. So we're going to concentrate really on these last 3 steps here. I don't really care how the expense report was made. Somebody made it, they scanned it in, they scanned it and paired it up with the receipts that were appropriate, and then they archived it. So we're going to pick up on step 3, and I'm going to put my manager's hat on. So as the manager, I'm going to come in the morning, and I have access to this particular view here that's going to show me a queue of things awaiting my approval. And here I can see I've got things from AJ Dukes and Bicycles Unlimited, and I'm most interested today in Elmer. So I'm going to look at Elmer Fudd's expense report, and Elmer has sent me this, excuse me, sent me this report, and they've included some other pages with receipts and such. As a manager, I like what I see, so for this particular workflow, again, we built it using the sign-off, using this notes function. So I'm going to add a note. I can put whatever information I want to put in down here. This doesn't control the workflow at all, but it allows me to communicate some other information maybe to accounts payable. What matters for me to change the state of this expense report from unapproved to approved is for me to move it on to step 2 in that process. So I'm going to save that note, and then when I refresh my view, you'll notice Elmer has dropped off my list of things to do. Now, if I take off my manager's hat and I pretend now that I'm the accounts payable person, when I come in the door in the morning, I open my viewer and I look at this particular view, the AP approved view, and this gives me a short collection of the documents that have been approved by somebody else and they're ready to be entered. So I'm going to open this guy up, and while I'm viewing him on the screen, imagine I'm on another screen off to the right running Syspro. I'm going to enter this payment exactly as you would today. Again, no change here with DDX other than I don't need the paper, and this copy is controlled and preserved and accessible to others even during this process if I choose. So now I've entered this thing into Syspro. I want to mark this thing as complete because I'm all done with it. I'm going to add another note, and again, the way I built this particular workflow is such that step 3, it signifies that I'm all done and the thing is entered. And when I refresh my view, unless somebody has sent me something else in the meantime, I'm all done. As we can see, I've got no documents here left for me to be concerned with. Now, at any point along the way, any DDX user that has access to view this expense report can go in and check where it is. I'm just going to do a quick search for Elmer so I can find the expense report. There it is. Anybody who has, again, security access to view this thing can go back and look at these notes and say, oh, it was approved on such and such date and time by this person, and it looks like it was entered here by this person, so it's all done. I should be getting my check pretty soon. And that viewing could take place anywhere throughout the process, depending on how you happen to have security set up. So from a workflow standpoint, oops, we missed one step here. I need to be able to find these things later. Well, we saw quickly how you could search for them from within DDX itself, but from within Syspro, I can again use Syspro's capabilities for linking things. In this case, we've chosen a link using VB scripting, where I can simply locate the vendor, I can look at the list of supplier invoices, and I can click on the European trip here to initiate that search in DDX, and here again is the document that's related to that. So some simple ways of getting at the things that you need from within Syspro or outside of Syspro, depending on what you choose. So if we just recap real quickly what DDX can do for you, it delivers documents, right? I just print them. They are faxed and or emailed and or printed and or filed away. And when I say it can be any combination of those things as well. It can be multiple email addresses or multiple fax numbers and or multiple printers that you send this thing to. And again, all the user says is, I want to print, and it's all done for them behind the scenes. And all logged in detail as well, so you can see what was requested and what was actually accomplished. DDX then saves those documents, auto-filing a lot of the things that came out of Syspro, but dealing with a lot of the other kinds of things that you may receive as well. Scan documents that you're creating in-house, paper through a scanner, and then filing that away, or receiving customer POs, supplier invoices, and the like. I can search for things and find things. I can set up workflows and security and revision control, all aimed at controlling those documents as I see fit. And the third big thing that DDX does is it integrates with other systems like Syspro. So we view that integration piece as foundational to our management of documents and working in the ecosystem that is the type of thing that our manufacturing and distribution companies deal with on a day-to-day basis. We saw that integration in a couple different forms already today. first in the capture of those documents using our form recognition tools. We train DDX to recognize some of the forms coming out of Syspro, and when we install at your site, we will do the same for customer invoices, customer order acknowledgments, and supplier POs, so that day one you have something that's useful and functional and can help start paying back and returning that investment very quickly. The other way that we integrate is with the search capabilities, and we saw that with the hyperlinking coming out of Syspro. Very simple to set up, and wherever hyperlinks are supported, and for places where hyperlinks aren't supported, it's easy to do in VB scripting as well. So that integration and the tool set that's used to integrate with Syspro is the same tool set that we deliver with the rest of the product that you can use for other things as well, whether it's integrating with a shipping system you may have, or training DDX to recognize a scanned bill of lading. All of those types of things are there and available at your disposal. So other features that we haven't touched on so far. Let me see if I can find where I wanted to be here. A lot of yeah, here we go. From an administrative standpoint, you have the ability to set up and add new document types and tweak the ones that are there. You can customize and create your own views or collections as you see fit. You can set up security and workflow. You can determine how you want revision control to work, and you can set up document retention policies. So for example, I may want my invoices to be on file forever, or maybe only 7 years. You can make that choice. Maybe I only want my packing slips around for 2 years. You can make that choice as well. Once you set up those policies, DDX just polices the database and shreds those things at the end of their life. From a system standpoint, everything that we put away is pretty highly compressed, so they become very small to store, and they're encrypted for safety. So when you look at our database, we've seen customers get mileage as good as 1 million documents stored, or 1 million pages stored in as little as about 60 gigabytes worth of space, which is really pretty small, but yet very fast. I've got a customer locally here who's got about 1.5 million pages in their DDX archive at the moment, and when they want to find that one invoice that they're looking for, they can search for it by invoice number and have it up on their screen in about a second. So very, very fast as well. The system is virtual server ready, and it is backed by Microsoft SQL Server. So you've got an industrial strength database on the back end that is there to keep your data safe, but also provides some interesting options from a programmability standpoint should you wish to exercise those types of things. So from a benefit standpoint, when you look at DDX and boil it all down, there's a lot less risk involved here. The paper that is at risk today is now replaced by an electronic system that allows for disaster recovery and safety. In the worst case, paper may simply be gone, never to be recovered ever again. But with DDX, that's never the case. You can recover just about anything. There's less waste, less physical space wasted, less time wasted, less money overall wasted by streamlining your operations. You've freed your documents up to simplify and speed communication internally, even if it's across the plant or if you're dealing with multiple plants, but also externally with your customers and suppliers as well. So there's a lot of big savings. Really, the biggest benefit is there's big savings to be had by improving your processes of managing documents with DDX's document management system. And our customers tell us routinely, those that have done good, thorough return on investment analysis, that 3 to 5 months is pretty common in terms of return, and sometimes even less, as is the case here with Jane. And that it also, as it starts to meld its way into the organization, it becomes a real critical tool to a business process. Customer service people and collections people can live on the information supplied to them in DDX, because they've got all the documentation that they need to answer whatever questions may arise right at their fingertips while a customer's on the phone. So all those headaches that many, if not most, companies experience in one way, shape, or form, all those things start to evaporate when you start using DDX to manage your documents, so that you can be free of all of those things with DDX. That's my favorite quote of all. And we're around after the fact. I mean, we are a software developer, but we're as much a service provider as a software developer. We're here to provide any consulting and training that you need after the fact, installation from the beginning as well. We can deal with customization in DDX, in ERP, and in integration and workflow, and we provide much of the free training as well, just on Dash University, which is a series of ongoing webinars. So my question for you is, once you have DDX, what are you going to do with all that extra freedom? I'm going to open it up to questions for anybody who may have them.
This is Yvette. I don't see any questions currently, but feel free to type in your questions, or if you prefer, you could click the raise hand button on the right-hand side of your computer, and I can unmute you so you can ask your questions. While I give everyone a few minutes, I just want to remind everyone of Syspro's promotion. If you're interested in this application, I'd encourage you to take advantage of the 20% discount through the end of the year. Just let me know, and I'd be more than happy to forward you a quote. I don't see any questions or raised hands at this time. Jim, I think you've done an awesome job at presenting, or maybe people are just shy.
Well, it's also after lunch, So.
I understand. Well, if there are no questions, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's presentation. Just to remind you, this has